welcome Hyowon up to the stage. He's going to be our chant leader for today.
Y'all ready? Up with liberation and the U.S. occupation. 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 Resistance is justified when people are occupied. Resistance is justified when people are occupied. Resistance is justified when people are occupied. Resistance is justified. People are occupied. No boots on the ground, no bombs in the air. U.S. out of everywhere. No boots on the ground, no bombs in the air. U.S. out of everywhere. Up with liberation. Down with occupation. 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 We remember 53. We will fight you till we're free. We remember 53. We will fight you till we're free. Resistance is justified when people are occupied. 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 No boots in the ground, no bombs in the air. U.S. out of everywhere. No boots in the ground, no bombs in the air. U.S. out of everywhere. No boots on the ground, no bombs in the air. U.S. out of everywhere. No boots on the ground, no bombs in the air. U.S. out of everywhere. Up with liberation. Down with occupation. Up with liberation. Down with occupation. Up with liberation. Down with occupation. Up with liberation. Down with occupation.
Thank you, Hyowon, for that very energizing start. Thank you all so much for taking time out of your Sunday to demand the U.S. out of Korea, hands off Gaza, U.S. out of the Asia Pacific. My name is Mion, and I am joined with my co-MC. I'm with Norato. I'm joined by my co-MC, Nai with Palestinian Youth Movement. So Hyowon got us off to a great start. I'm going to lead us through a couple more chants and we'll get started with our speaking program. We want justice, you say how? We want justice, you say how? U.S. out of Korea now. From Korea to Palestine, occupation is a crime. We want justice, you say how? U.S. out of Korea now. Friends, today we are answering a call from our Korean brothers and sisters. Korea is closer to war now than we have been in generations. Now, for the first time since the U.S. has occupied our homeland, their aggression and war games now includes a concrete plan to drop nuclear bombs on the Korean people. Shame! This past week, thousands gathered together in South Korea, including labor unions, farmers, women, and students, who rallied in Seoul to oppose U.S. nuclear war exercises, call for an end to the U.S., Japan, South Korea's military alliance, and demand the resignation of South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol. And that is why we are here today. We are thousands of miles away in Koreatown, New York, in solidarity with the people in our homeland to back up their demands. For decades, the U.S. has conducted war games in Korea. Every U.S. president, Republican and Democrat, has sowed aggression in our homeland. Their carpet bombing, mass starvation, and massacres in the Korean War have shown us what lengths the U.S. will go to uphold their power and suppress the will of the people. Since then, they have stolen Korean land to build their military bases. They've run sham elections to elect their puppets and allowed their soldiers to rape and kill civilians with zero accountability. Shame! Shame! The U.S. will claim that their presence and nuclear war plans are defensive and protect South Koreans. We reject the notion that you can protect a people by nuking their land. There is nothing defensive about starting a nuclear war. The first and only time atomic bombs were dropped, 100,000 Koreans in Japan were killed or injured, and thousands of their descendants live with disability and chronic health issues to this day. Now, as the U.S. pushes Korea to the brink of nuclear war, Korean lives and land are in jeopardy once again. Are we going to let that happen? No! 78 years ago, on October 15, 1945, Korea was liberated from over 35 years of Japanese colonial rule. We stand here today before our martyrs and revolutionaries who organized themselves to fight bravely against Japanese colonialism. We stand here today in honor of our martyrs and revolutionaries to let the U.S. know we have liberated ourselves before, and we will do it again until Korea is won and until Korea is freed of U.S. imperialism. As Koreans in the U.S., we bear a responsibility to speak out in defense of our homeland. Our Palestinian brothers and sisters also bear this same charge, as U.S.-backed imperialism is yet again orchestrating a genocide. Please welcome my co-MC, Nye, with Palestinian Youth Movement.
From the belly of the beast! We want justice, we want peace! Justice is our demand! No peace on stolen land! We demand liberation! And the U.S. occupation! sisters, siblings, as Palestinians and Arab, our struggle is against U.S. imperialism wherever it lays its hands, whether that's in Palestine or Korea. Both the partition of Palestine and Korea occurred at the same time when the U.S. was attempting to expand its hegemony and continue its brutal attacks on the free people of the world. Shame! At its most visceral, both people, the Korean and the Palestinian and Arab people, have felt the brutality of U.S. manufactured bombs, weapons, and destruction. In the Korean War, over 635,000 tons of bombs were dropped on the Korean peninsula. And though figures on the bombing of Gaza remain difficult to verify, even the most conservative estimates breach this number. Our collective liberation depends on a transnational solidarity of the free people of the world against US-led imperialism. From the belly of the beast to Palestine to Korea, we here in the diaspora bear a responsibility to do everything in our power to uplift the call and the demands of our people, of our brothers and sisters and siblings back home in Korea and in Palestine, fighting against US-led imperialism and fighting for the liberation of all oppressed people. As revolutionary Palestinian Ghassan Kanafani has famously said, and I'm sure many of you have heard this quote before, but it can't be said too many times, imperialism has laid its body over the world, the head in Eastern Asia, the heart in the Middle East, its arteries reaching Africa and Latin America. Wherever you strike it, you damage it, and you serve the world revolution. From the belly of the beast, hands of the Middle East. From the belly of the beast, we want justice, we want peace. Justice is our demand. No peace on stolen land. Justice is our demand. No peace on stolen land. We demand liberation and the U.S. occupation. We demand liberation and Israeli occupation. We want justice, you say how? U.S. out of Korea now! U.S. out of Korea now! Hands off Gaza now! Now! Hands off Gaza now! The people united will never be defeated! The people united will never be defeated! I'm going to pass it back to my comrade to introduce the next speaker.
Thank you, Nai. I'm proud to introduce our first speaker in our program, Hyoa with Nodoto for Korean Community Development.
Y'all ready? Up with liberation and the U.S. occupation. Up with liberation and the U.S. occupation. Come on, up with liberation and the U.S. occupation. One more time, up with liberation and the U.S. occupation. My name is Sean, and I am a member of Nodator, and we are here today to demand an end to U.S. nuclear-led exercises on the peninsula and to demand the full expulsion of U.S. troops from our homeland. Within the past year, the U.S. has escalated tensions to the brink of war in Korea. They have deployed nuclear-capable weapon systems to South Korea and formed the Nuclear Consultative Group, which is a bilateral U.S.-South Korea body that is responsible for creating plans to use nuclear weapons. On the last week of July, the U.S. and South Korea conducted their very first nuclear exercise called Iron Mace 24 in Pyeongtaek without the consent of the Korean people or the knowledge of American citizens. And starting tomorrow, the U.S. will be conducting massive war games called the Ulchi Freedom Shield exercises, where for 10 days they will be dropping bombs on our land and our waters, rehearsing for another destructive war against the Korean people. Not only that, but the U.S. has imposed a perverse trilateral alliance between itself, South Korea, and Japan. How shameful of the U.S. and the South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol to allow Japan, Korea's former colonizer, to raise the rising sun flag, the genocidal ensign, in our homeland. Ever since the U.S. came to our country, it has committed crime after crime against us. From cruelly dividing families, hundreds of thousands of families for over half a century, to barbaric acts of violence, including bombings, massacres, extrajudicial murders, and rape at the hands of U.S. soldiers. During the Korean War alone, the U.S. killed 3 to 5 million of our people. With such a pernicious track record, how can anyone feel safe with the U.S.'s decision to bring nukes into our country with the intent of using them? Keep in mind that the U.S. is the only country to have ever used nukes on another country, on ordinary civilians. As we gather here today, the Democratic National Convention is happening in Chicago. That's right. Now we know that whatever differences the Democrats and the Republicans claim to have, both want to continue the genocide in Palestine. Both want to occupy the Philippines. Both want war in Korea. Both parties have imperialist aims across the world. Furthermore, we know that regardless of who will be elected, the U.S. will continue its warmongering policies at the expense of the working class here. Rather than using taxpayers' money, our money, to fund education, housing, transportation, or health care, the leaders of this country would rather drop bombs on entire populations for the sake of profit. However, we know that we, the working people, hold the power to oppose the U.S.'s warmongering. We know we must organize to halt the U.S.'s plans for war, and we in order to claim that responsibility with pride. Just as we proudly align ourselves with those dignified people in Palestine, the Philippines, Haiti, people everywhere who refuse to submit to the bondage of empire. Together, we can and we will build a force strong enough to oppose the empire. US out of Korea! US out of Korea! US out of Korea! Thank you.
Number one terrorist!
Number one terrorist!
U.S. imperialist! Number one terrorist! List! From the belly of the beast! No justice, no peace! No justice! No justice! No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
If we don't get no justice! If we don't get no justice! No justice! No justice! What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? And when do we want it? If we don't get it! If we don't get it! If we don't get it! If Korea doesn't get it! If Palestine doesn't get it! If the Philippines doesn't get it! If Lebanon doesn't get it! Shut it down! Shut it down! What? Shut it down! It is my honor to welcome two comrades who've been on the streets with us for the last 10 months, and I'm sure for years before. Juyeon in Seoul with Korean Americans in solidarity with the Progressive Party.
안녕하십니까? 진보당 재미위원회 소속인 이주연입니다.
Hello everyone, my name is Juyeon. I am a member of Korean Americans in solidarity with the Progressive Party.
이 자리에 무거운 마음으로 나왔습니다. 지난 8월 1일까지 최초로 실시되었던 핵무기 전략훈련 아이언 메이스 24 한미 핵 재래식 통합 도상연습에 이어서 을지 자유의 방패 한미연합 군사훈련이 8월 19일 내일부터 시작됩니다.
I stand here today with a heavy heart. Following the first tabletop strategic nuclear weapons training, Iron Mace 24, which is conducted until August 1st, another annual joint U.S.-South Korea military exercise, Ulji Freedom Shield, will begin tomorrow, August 19.
자유의 방패라니요. 한미 당국은 역대급 핵 훈련 원사련을 연례적으로 실시해온 방어적 성격이라고 말합니다. 그러나 유사시 선제 공격, 북지도부 참수 작전 이 등이 포함된 작전 계획은 방어전이 될 수 없습니다.
What do they mean, Freedom Shield? The U.S. and South Korean authorities claim that this unprecedented nuclear military exercise is an annual defensive exercise. However, operational plans that include preemptive strikes and decapitation operations targeting North Korean leadership cannot be considered defensive.
북진 통일의 또 다른 말인 자유의 북진 정책을 공식화하고 있는 윤석열 정부는 정말 한반도에서 전쟁을, 그것도 핵전쟁을 일으킬 작정인 것입니까?
The Yoon Suk-yeol administration has formalized the Advancing Northward for Freedom policy, a euphemism for unifying the Korean peninsula by force. Does he seriously intend to provoke a war, even a nuclear war, on the Korean peninsula?
그리고 유크레인 가자 지역을 이어서 가는 곳마다 주둔하는 곳마다 군사적 긴장과 분쟁을 불러일으키는 미국은 세계 역사상 유일하게 핵무기를 사용한 미국은 반성하기는커녕 핵무기를 사용하는 전쟁 연습을 왜 우리 조국에서 하고 있다는 말입니까?
And why is the United States the only country in history to have used nuclear weapons, conducting war exercises involving nuclear weapons on our homeland, rather than reflecting on its past actions? The U.S., which incites military tensions and conflicts wherever it goes, from Ukraine to Gaza, should be questioned.
여러분, 민생, 을지, 자유의 방패, 한미연합군사훈련은 한반도의 군사 대결을 격화시키고 전쟁 위기를 고조시킵니다. 당장 중단해야 합니다. 한반도의 긴장은 미국의 적대적인 대북 정책에 기인합니다. 당장 바꾸어야 합니다.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Ulchi Freedom Shield joint military exercise escalates military confrontation and heightens the risk of war on the Korean Peninsula. It must be stopped immediately. The tensions on the Korean Peninsula stem from the U.S.'s hostile policy towards North Korea. This policy must be changed now.
민생, 복지, 교육, 환경 이렇게 중요하고 핵심적인 정책을 만들어내고 실천하는 것이 아니라 안보라는 이름하에 국방에만 군수산업에만 국가 예산을 가져다 붓는 미국이 그리고 그에 동조하는 한국이 지금 정상적인 국가입니까?
Can we honestly say that the U.S. is a normal country when it pours all of its money into defense and the military-industrial complex under the guise of security, rather than creating and implementing vital policies for livelihoods, welfare, education, and the environment? The same goes for South Korea.
미국에 살고 있는 동포 여러분, 우리가 나서야 합니다. 다 함께 소리 높여 외칩시다. 평화는 아무것도 하지 않고 되찾을 수 없습니다.
Fellow Koreans living in the United States, we must take action. Let's raise our voices together. Peace cannot be reclaimed by doing nothing.
미국 정부는 대북 적대 정책을 폐기하라. 한반도 평화협정을 적극적으로 추진하라.
The U.S. government must abandon its hostile policy towards North Korea. The U.S. government must actively pursue a peace treaty on the Korean Peninsula.
한국 정부는 종미주의를 벗어나 전쟁 연습을 당장 중단하라. 민생과 복지, 평화에 주력하라.
The South Korean government must break free from its pro-U.S. stance and immediately stop war exercises. We must focus on the people's welfare, peace, and well-being.
감사합니다.
Thank you.
No boots on the ground, no bombs in the air.
No boots on the ground, no bombs in the air.
U.S. out of everywhere.
U.S. out of everywhere.
No boots on the ground, no bombs in the air. U.S. out of everywhere.
U.S. out of everywhere.
U.S. out of Korea now.
U.S. out of Korea now.
U.S. out of Palestine now.
U.S. out of Palestine now.
U.S. out of Korea now.
U.S. out of Korea now.
U.S. out of everywhere.
U.S. out of everywhere.
U.S. out of everywhere.
U.S. out of everywhere.
So, stop the war games, leave our land.
Stop the war games, leave our land.
U.S. out is our demand.
U.S. out is our demand.
Stop the war games, leave our land.
The war games, leave our land.
U.S. out is our demand.
U.S. out is our demand.
And number one, terrorists.
Number one, terrorists.
U.S. imperialists.
U.S. imperialists.
Number one, terrorists.
Number one, terrorists.
U.S. imperialists.
U.S. imperialists.
It is my honor to welcome my comrade with the Palestinian Youth Movement, Munir, who's going to come up and speak to us about how our struggles from Palestine and Korea against U.S. imperialism is one struggle and how our victory will be one victory. Give it up.
Korea to Palestine. Occupation is a crime. Korea to Palestine. Occupation is a crime. Thank you, comrades. My name is Munir, and I'm here with the Palestinian Youth Movement. And I stand here today because what Israel is doing to Gaza, it tried to do to my family many years ago. And I know that many of you are here because of the crimes of US empire as well. They tried to bury us, but they didn't know that we were seeds, and that these seeds have taken root right here in the belly of the beast. It's been over 300 days since the US-backed genocide against our people in Gaza escalated. Shame. And Koreans have been some of our fiercest allies on the streets. I've seen so many of you here in the streets with us, and for that I say thank you. We know that our liberation is one and the same, from Gaza to Korea, from Palestine to Pyongyang. Across the world, the US empire has brought us to the brink of nuclear war, and we should all be angry. The colonial playbook is clear. They sign treaties and then they don't follow them. They want us to play by the rules. Rules they came up with, and rules they don't even follow. They talk about negotiations to stall us and distract us, but we know that all of their promises are empty promises. The only language empire understands is resistance, and that's why we are here to resist. No more impunity for their endless wars, not in our name. Then they use their imaginary borders, their colonial borders, to divide us. They divide families from families and siblings from siblings. Gaza is Palestine and Palestine is Gaza. Korea is one. Just as Koreans are separated by these colonial lines, so are we Palestinians. But we know that they don't get to decide who we are. They don't get to tell us whether we are one people or many. We reject their colonial borders and their colonial states. And we know that just as Palestine is one, Korea is one. The US has only one true purpose, and that is profit at any cost. They export 42% of the world's arms. They create weapons of death, and those weapons proliferate and kill our brothers and sisters, and release chemicals that are poisoning our planet. The US just released billions of dollars in weapons for Israel to exterminate a captive population in Gaza. And tomorrow they will release even more weapons in their war games. Then they have the audacity to call us the violent ones. They use nuclear weapons or our resistance as a pretense to invade, sanction, colonize, and destroy. They talk about the threat of nuclear war, but they've already dropped the equivalent of tens of nuclear bombs on Gaza. Shame. The US wants to drag our world even deeper into its web of war so that it can continue to profit and spread its cancerous ideology. Just as the US occupies Korea, it occupies the Middle East with hundreds of military bases. And when people are occupied, resistance is justified. When people are occupied, resistance is justified. When people are occupied, resistance is justified. Israel is simply America's current attack dog of choice in the Middle East. And its current puppet in the Korean Peninsula is the South Korean government, who have exported $43 million in weapons of death to Israel in the past decade alone. Shame. Bombs that are now being used for genocide. Shame. So just as my comrade said, wherever you strike imperialism, you harm it, and you serve the world revolution. And we're here to strike it from within, and build alliances, and build a world where no one is profiting from the occupation and murder of our people. From Gaza to the Philippines, stop the US war machine. From Gaza to the Philippines, stop the US war machine. When people are occupied, resistance is justified. Thank you. Free Palestine, free Korea.
Let's give it up one more time for Munir. Shut it down Palestine Coalition has a volunteer meeting at 6:30 p.m. So I hope to see many of you there tomorrow night. Next up, I'm happy to introduce Grant from United Auto Workers Union.
Up with liberation! To end the U.S. occupation! Set up with liberation! End the U.S. occupation! Thank you very much. My name is Grant Miner. I'm the Vice President of Student Workers of Columbia, United Auto Workers 2710. I'm honored to be here with so many groups who came to support us in our encampment and to answer the call of both Palestinian and Korean trade unionists, our union siblings, who are opposing imperialism. As a union committed to social justice unionism and anti-imperialism, we often get questions like, what makes something like getting the U.S. out of Korea a workplace issue? Well, one reason we're all here is because the U.S. Army has conducted exercises for a nuclear attack scenario on North Korea's very doorstep. Shame. And, you know, I remember when that awful movie Oppenheimer came out, I received an email in my inbox touting Columbia's role in the Manhattan Project. Yet, in that very email, there was no reflection on the direct responsibility that our university played in developing a weapon that killed hundreds of thousands of people in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and as the comrade mentioned, over 100,000 colonized Koreans. The U.S. military is deeply intertwined with public life, especially universities. In 2021 alone, the Department of Defense gave us $49 million to Columbia University in grants. And so we have no workplace democracy. There is no workplace democracy for researchers, which means that we don't get a voice as to where our labor goes. What this means is that somebody who wants to study climate science to fight climate change ends up having their research sold to develop desalination plants for Israel and other US puppets in the region. This means that chemists and physicists have their research sold to serve as the building blocks for weapons that oftentimes are pointed at the very nations they have come from to do this research. As workers, we know it is our duty to fight against this complicity. Just as solidarity doesn't end and stop at the walls of our workplace, we know it also does not stop at our borders, but extends to all the oppressed people of the world. As we learned when the city's universities and the NYPD cracked down on campus protests, beating up community members, arresting faculty, students, and graduate workers alike, workers uniting and fighting against imperialism is what this system hates most, which is exactly why we need to keep doing that. And you know, I'll say, another reason why it's a workplace issue, self-interestedly, is because they keep trying to fire us for speaking up about these very issues. But I will be damned if I let one member of my union get fired for speaking out against imperialism. Pardon my language, if my mom's listening, sorry. So, from the factory to the lab, UAW members have been organizing to raise the consciousness of our fellow workers and cut ties with the US war machine. We deserve to have a say in where our labor goes, and we deserve to have a just transition away from a war economy that profits off of death from Gaza to the Korean Peninsula. We refuse to support a system that, rather than supporting the working class, spends trillions of dollars on economic warfare and physical warfare to boost the profits of the capitalist class and to immiserate billions the world over. That's why we, as a union, as UAW, say, US out of Korea now, no more war exercises, get out of there. Up with liberation. Set end the US occupation. No boots on the ground, no bombs in the air. US out of everywhere. Thank you very much.
from Bayan. Bayan is an organization which is organizing Filipinos in the U.S. against imperialism and supporting the national democratic struggle in the Philippines. We know that U.S. out of Korea also means U.S. out of the entire Asia Pacific. Everyone, please, let's welcome Chris.
Sinong terorista? Ang US! Ang US! Sila ang terorista! Sinong terorista? Ang US! Ang US! Sila ang terorista! Magandang hapon, mga kasama! Ako si Chris Hilo, ay isang comrade ng bayan, bagong alyansang magabayan. I've been part of the movement for more than 20 years of my life. We are not backing down. We are gonna continue the fight against U.S. imperialism. I too am a member of Gabriela, the women's sector, because U.S. imperialism only contributes to the oppression of women, not only in the Philippines, but worldwide. And I too am a member of a Mamas for Free Palestine. I have 2 children. If you have not been moved to take the streets for the children of Gaza, you need to wake up. We are here in solidarity, in our unwavering commitment with the Korean people to build our collective liberation against U.S. imperialism. The U.S. empire is our common enemy. From the Korean War, 1950 to 1953, and then the Philippine-American War, from 1899 to 1902. Did anybody know that in your U.S. history class? Did anybody learn about the first genocide in the 19th century in the Philippines? No! They don't want to teach you their ways. U.S. empire has been doing it for so long. This was the first one overseas. The genocide of the Native American indigenous people also. But they did this overseas in the Philippines. When you see the death count, it says 200,000 to maybe 2 million. What are they doing now in Gaza? They're giving you numbers, not real numbers, because we are not numbers. We are people. They will dehumanize you. They will dehumanize us till eternity, but we will not be dehumanized. We are people, and we are a fighting people. One of the in the genocide, there was a massacre named the Balanginga Massacre. Before that massacre took place, resistance took 54 U.S. troops out with bolos, fighting against the empire. What happened after that? What happened? Over 2,000 to 5,000 people were killed in the Philippines. It's a common thing where you see that advertisement of children being put to slaughter saying, kill everybody over 10. Yet that image was from the first massacres and genocides in the Philippines. Remember this, because they are trying to make sure you do not remember. Do you remember the name of the massacre that happened in the school just a few days ago in Gaza? From Palestine to the Philippines, we will end the U.S. war machine. The name of the school was Al-Tabayin. Over 100 people were murdered. They were praying, they were children. One of my friends, her family members were in that school. The bodies of the children are buried under a tree. You think this doesn't matter to any of you? It does, because people are being slaughtered and killed. And now, more than ever, U.S. imperialism. People will say, oh, history repeats itself. No! This is not repeating history. This is just U.S. empire doing, killing, slaughtering. And we will not allow it. The Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement in the Philippines. There are 9 EDCA sites in the Philippines, allowing for war games that are similar to what's going on in Korea. With your tax dollars. With your tax dollars. Over $1 billion U.S. tax dollars since 2015. Under the guise of anti-terrorism, under the guise of doing what? Fighting what? Terrorism. Fighting terrorism. Just this July, U.S. naval ship City of Bismarck landed in Legazpi under the guise of humanitarian assistance. Doesn't that sound familiar with the talk in Gaza? Humanitarian assistance. Do not be fooled. This is U.S. empire. This must end. U.S. military presence must end. It only will mean human rights violations. It will only mean impact on the Mother Earth, on our environment. We are still cleaning Subic Bay. It will only mean an increase of gender-based violence. Justice for Jennifer Love, a trans woman who was killed by U.S. Marine Joseph Scott Pemberton. Do not forget their stories. You must remember these people. And don't forget that they are clearly still in the Asia Pacific because your butcher Anthony Blinken, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, was just in the Philippines in July. Koreans, Filipinos, we share a long and rich history of resistance against U.S. imperialism. And we will continue the fight against U.S. imperialism with the resistance. We will follow in the footsteps of our ancestors. We will follow in the footsteps of the Katipunan. We will follow in the footsteps of the Hukbalahap. We will follow in the footsteps of the Bagong Hukbong Bayan. We will follow in the footsteps to fight. To fight. To fight. From Palestine to the Philippines. Stop the U.S. war machine. From Palestine to the Philippines. Stop the U.S. war machine. U.S. troops out now. U.S. troops out now. U.S. troops out now. Maraming salamat.
Thank you, comrade. Some of us have been in the movement for over 2 decades. Some of us have been in the movement for years. Some of us have just joined the last 10 months. But it is never too late to join the struggle against U.S. imperialism and for the liberation of all oppressed people. So to those walking around right now, come in, come join us and listen to us. Listen to our speeches about the relationships between our struggles from Palestine to Korea to the Philippines. The struggle for the liberation of all oppressed people. And to all of the workers who are here around us, who know that this country, this government, this system does not value their labor, that puts profit over people, that knows that our tax dollars here, tax dollars that should be going to fund healthcare and education and housing and better jobs, is going to murder our brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers and children in Gaza, is going to continue war exercises in the Korean Peninsula, is going to oppress the free people of the Philippines, instead of supporting workers here and around the world, because that is what capitalism and imperialism is all about. Workers for Palestine, Reina.
Money for jobs and education. Not for war and occupation. Money for jobs and education. Not for war and occupation. Hello, comrades. My name is Reina. I'm a Parks Department worker, a member of DC 37, and an organizer with City Workers for Palestine. Over the past 10 months, we've heard the repeated calls of our union siblings in Palestine to put pressure on our institutions to stop the funding of Israel's genocide, and we have demanded that our elected officials call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire, and that our public pensions be divested from Israeli securities. Although this struggle is ongoing, I don't think we should underestimate the impact that being involved in this prolonged struggle for Palestinian liberation has had on the consciousness of the workers in our city. It has become obvious that every aspect of our lives, from our tax dollars, from our pensions, to our university endowments, to our media and our culture, is inevitably linked to the conditions of the people of Palestine and poor and working people around the world. In New York City, we're facing an unprecedented budget crisis. While we face skyrocketing rent and utility prices, crumbling infrastructure, and healthcare and education systems that have been underfunded for decades, Eric Adams wants to blame this budget crisis on two things: the loss of federal funding from the COVID-19 stimulus funding and the so-called migrant crisis. But to us, we see at the root of both of these issues is the US war machine. While poor and working people in New York City have far from recovered from the devastation of the pandemic, we are losing billions of dollars of federal funding. This is expected to hit the Department of Education especially hard. The DOE has relied on $7 billion of federal funding since the start of the pandemic to fund its services, and in particular for providing universal 3K and thousands of school nurses. This funding cliff is directly related to the ever-increasing federal funding of the US military. That we live in a society where apparently we cannot afford to invest a couple $1 billion in our children in the richest city in the world, while we can afford to spend over $1.5 trillion on our military each year on bombs that are dropped on children in Gaza, on nuclear war games in Korea that threaten the entire existence of humanity as we know it. This contradiction is shameful beyond words. How dare Eric Adams say there is no possible way to provide for the needs of our youth, while in the same breath saying New York stands with Israel and endorsing the trillions spent on genocide and death and destruction around the globe, which benefits no one but weapons manufacturers and other corporations that depend on imperialism for profit? Shame. We also know that the so-called migrant crisis is a direct result of US military interventions, and that it only serves as a way to divide and distract us from the billions our city is spending on police and prisons, the domestic component of the US war machine. How dare Eric Adams say that we don't have money for our schools and for our parks, while in the same breath improving the construction of a $225 million law enforcement training facility in Queens. In City Workers for Palestine, we are joining the fight as the workers who make our city run to say no cop city. We refuse to stay silent while the NYPD and the IOF train together and share techniques of mass surveillance, racial profiling, and the violent repression of protesters. We refuse to stay silent while every agency in our city is threatened with devastating budget cuts except for the NYPD, which is continually gifted over $6 billion each year to violently repress Black and brown communities. To put things into perspective, as a park workers, we get 10% of that budget, while we manage 15% of our city's land. We refuse to stay silent where our city approves $3.6 billion for the Department of Corrections, which spends over $500,000 per incarcerated person per year. Most of us could never dream of making that much money per year.
How dare our elected officials tell us it's impossible to fund universal housing. It's impossible to fund universal health care. It's impossible to fund the creation of jobs while they spend $500,000 per year per incarcerated person. War, police, prisons, and propaganda have always been the toolkit of empire, and they will never face the acts of budget shortfalls like essential services from working people do. The ruling class sees investing on these tools of violent repression as quintessential to their survival because it is a response to the fear of the power of our strongest weapon, which will prevail. And that weapon is the unity when we fight for liberation in solidarity as workers across sectors, with workers in Palestine, in Korea, and in the Philippines. It is our duty as workers to uphold the call of Korean trade unions to seize every opportunity to organize with our coworkers and to talk to them about how the war games and war crimes from Korea and Palestine impact all of our lives so we can continue building the consciousness that will lead us in the march towards our liberation. Up with liberation. Down, down with occupation. Up with liberation. Down, down with occupation. Woo, give it up, crime. Not another nickel, not another dime. No more money for USA crimes. Not another nickel, not another dime. No more money for Israel's crimes. Our next speaker will be joining us with the Answer Coalition movement against war. We know that every single national liberation struggle across the globe and across history has been joined by solidarity movements from within the belly of the beast. From the anti-war movement against the war in Vietnam to the solidarity movement right now against genocide in Palestine, we know that we have our historic responsibility as people living in the belly of the beast, that we can materially confront Zionism and imperialism from within, and that it is our responsibility to do so. We hear Netanyahu asking Biden, you have to stop those demonstrations. You need to stop those demonstrations. We know that every single politician and ruling class cannot escape Palestine, cannot escape the demands of the people. And we know that we have built this movement. Just as our comrades built a movement against the war in Vietnam 50 years ago, and we will continue to do today until US imperialism collapses and all our people are free. So please give it up for Jasmine with the Answer Coalition.
Hi everyone, my name is Jasmine. I'm an organizer with the Answer Coalition, which stands for Act Now to Stop War and End Racism. Thank you so much to PYM and Nodotul for inviting us to speak here today. And thank you to all of the speakers for your very clear messaging. It is up to us from inside the belly of the beast to demand that the US leave the Korean Peninsula and to demand to stop the funding of the genocide in Palestine. It is actually our duty as people living in this country to stop the empire from within. Both ruling class corporate parties are pouring billions of dollars into military aid. They are bloating the military budget annually, and they are, sorry. Thank you so much. And they are increasing the military budget annually while the military is conducting drills that send out a very clear message that the US does not stand for peace. The US has done nothing but escalate regional warfare and keep people divided. Their real mission is to keep Wall Street and international finance happy and rich. Meanwhile, here at home, our teachers have to fundraise for their classroom supplies. Our friends, co-workers, and family have to fundraise to cover medical bills. The majority of people in this country are one paycheck away from financial catastrophe. Let's make it clear that all of the US's military actions abroad are reflective of what's actually happening here at home. while the US occupies South Korea and escalates towards a regional war and fully supports, aids, and finances the ongoing genocide in Palestine, our neighborhoods in Brooklyn, Queens, Uptown, and the Bronx are relentlessly patrolled. Why do we have the National Guard at our subways? Why are there always at least 5 police officers monitoring the playgrounds in our neighborhoods? Why is the military allowed to recruit high schoolers? The ruling class criminalizes poverty while they get away with war. They have billions to spend on war crimes, on genocide, on escalating regional conflict, but we can't get healthcare? We can't get high-quality public education? We're supposed to live off $15 an hour minimum wage? The corporate politicians, both Democrats and Republicans, love to tell us who our enemies are. Last election cycle, it was China. This time, it's actually North Korea. Wait, no, it's actually the Palestinians. But we see through their lies. We're very clear on one thing here today. It is the ruling class of this country that is our enemy. They are the ones to deploy soldiers abroad. They are the ones sending bombs to massacre families. They are the ones who slash public spending every opportunity that they get. They are the imperialists who are responsible for bloodshed abroad and here at home. We're here today to say no to imperialism, to say no to an Asian NATO, to stand up and fight back against the warmongers who have no humanity. We're here united and determined as ever for our siblings in Palestine and Korea. From the belly of the beast, we say US out of Korea, free, free Palestine. Free, free, free Palestine. From the belly of the beast, hands off the Middle East. Thanks, everyone.
I know it's hot out. We also have water in water cups by a cart towards the back of the crowd if you need it. Feel free to step into the shade. But we're not done yet. We have one more speaker left. Please welcome to the stage Executive Director of the People's Forum, Manolo de los Santos.
To the Palestinian people because they have brought all of us together. From Haiti to Korea, we stand together against US occupation. This empire, with its 800 military bases across the world, thinks it can intimidate us, thinks it can control everything under its thumb. But they're wrong. In fact, this empire is weak. This empire is fragile. This empire is wounded. Every time the people of the world rise up, it's another wound to this empire. The people of Mali, of Niger, of Burkina Faso, kicking the Americans out is a wound to the empire. The Filipino people fighting in the cities and in the mountains is a wound in the empire. The people of Cuba resisting blockades is a wound in the empire. Venezuela refusing to give up their natural resources is a wound to the empire. The Palestinian people fighting for their land and for their people is a wound to the empire. But the wound they didn't expect, the wound that they never thought would come, would be a mass uprising. The the mass mobilization of young people right here inside the United States. You young people here in the U.S. are the greatest threat to this empire. You're such a threat that they even had to come up with a blackface to empire to try to quell you down. There's only one party in this country. It's the party of war. It's the party of death. It's the party of empire. Democrat or Republican, they both believe in war. Democrat or Republican, they believe and will defend to the hilt all of their 800 military bases. Democrat or Republican, they believe in genocide against our people. So there can only be one answer to the one party of war. And it is revolution right here in the belly of the beast. But my friends, revolution takes more than mass mobilizations. Revolution requires organization. It requires consistency. And it means we leave here with a commitment that the struggle for one Korea, the struggle to end U.S. occupation everywhere, starts tomorrow in the streets again and again and again. We cannot be waiting for anyone to come save us. They will not come. We are the ones who right now, right here, have to answer for the crimes against humanity. We are the ones who have to stand up and say, we stand on the side of the righteous, on the side of the majority of people of this planet. So comrades, we fight today, we fight tomorrow, we fight always. Thank you.
Number one terrorist! U.S. imperialist! Number one terrorist! U.S. imperialist! Only one country has over 800 military bases across the globe. Only one country has dropped nuclear bombs on another country. Only one country is committing a genocide right now. And that is the U.S. Che Guevara once said something along the lines of, I envy you who revolutionaries in the heart of empire because you guys get to fight one of the most important fights. So let us not forget we have a responsibility and that we have a role here alongside the resistance in Palestine, the resistance in Korea, in Philippines, the resistance of the free people of the world. We also have a responsibility here because Korea is one and Palestine is one from the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. And from the sea to the river. Palestine will live forever.
Palestine will live forever.
We want justice, you say how?
We want justice, you say how? We want justice, you say how?
talking about. It's actually